Good morning.
Good morning. It's almost the Ides of March. It's the 14th of March, 2021. And our talk today is entitled Release and Let Go. So I'm going to begin with a reading from Ernest Holmes, our founder of this thing called the Science of Mind. And it's today's reading from 365, the Daily Inspiration. It's called the immutability of the law. Immutability meaning unchanging nature, and the law is the law of mind. So he says, and he does a little bit of expounding first, and then it ends with an affirmative prayer. And I'll tell you when that begins so you can do it with me. There is a power to which all things are possible. This power, or law of mind, is right where we are, and we use it with every thought we think. To come into the greater possibility of good that is open to each of us, we must use it constructively. This is what we do in giving a spiritual mind treatment, which we call practicing the science of mind. Taking our inspiration from God's Spirit dwelling within us, we cause the law to operate for us at this level of consciousness. When Jesus said that we should seek first the kingdom of heaven and everything else would be added, he was telling us that when our consciousness lifts itself above confusion and enters the peace of the Spirit, then our word spoken from this center is acted upon immutably, producing the desired effect. We are not making the prayer work or using spiritual mind treatment to force things to happen any more than we would be compelling a reflection of our likeness to be cast from a mirror when we stand in front of it. Such reflection is automatic. It is certain to look exactly like the image. In just such a manner, our thought reflects into a creative medium that returns its image. So say now with me, and your own space if you care to, this affirmative prayer. Believing in the immutable law of mind and knowing that I am not coercing, I do now completely abandon myself to the realization that I am one with the living spirit, one with the eternal good, one with the everlasting God. I am steadfast in my affirmation, letting nothing limit or obstruct its reflection in my experience. There is nothing in me that need compel my word to operate, nor is there anything in me that can hinder its operation. Standing still, operating from the divine center of my own consciousness, I announce the truth, and the truth makes me free. And so it is. So, one thing that he says in there that I would like to explain a little bit is he said that we don't use the law falsely, said something like that. Um, and what that means, uh, what he's saying by that is that positive thoughts and expectation produce positive results, and negative thoughts and expectation or worrying causes that which you don't want to happen. And he calls that the negative use of the law, or using it falsely. And this is the biggest revelation that most people get when they come into our teaching. Think, oh my gosh, you mean all the worrying I've done is actually creating what I don't want? Yes, that has that tendency. It is the tendency of your thoughts and feelings and expectations that materialize.
There's no time when a fish is moving that the water doesn't move around him. And so every single activity of the fish in water moves the water, whether he's going backward, forward, or sideways, or up or down. And I think if we were to think of thought the same way, that there isn't a thought that you have that doesn't move that which is you and that which is a part of you that is around you.
Exactly. So it's always responding. There's never a time it's not responding. And So when you pray affirmatively, knowing, what you pray as if you've already received the thing that you desire, which is what Jesus said in the New Testament. When you pray, pray believing you receive and you shall receive. Uh, so we pray as if we've already received the good that we want.
Yeah, we pray like we picked the destination on the GPS, we've filled the car up with gas, and now we're on our way. And the fact that we can't see the destination does not have to do with us not being on our way to the destination. And it doesn't change the destination's existence. Very often when we're on our way to a place, we visualize the place, we imagine what we're going to do when we get to the place. The place is always the place. It's up to us to hold it in mind and allow it to grow inside of us in its experience and its expression.
Mhm. Um, so when we pray, but 5 main steps that we use. The first one is recognizing that the power of this law is God's power, not my power. So I recognize that the power is God. I unify with that, knowing that this thing we call God is a creative energy that is everywhere present in
It's
all
it,
things,
it's in me, it's in
including in
you.
me.
Right.
And so I unify with it. I know this power, this presence is within me. And then I state what I would like to see happen as if I already have it. And I state it always in the present tense. And then the last 2 steps are to release and give thanks, because you can't ever really accept something until you've given thanks for it. And we don't hold thoughts. Often people will tell us, well, hold that good thought for me, or hold this thought for me. We don't hold thoughts. We do the treatment and then we release it. We release it to the universe to do its work. Because if you try to hold on to it, what you tend to do is worry about it.
Mhm.
It's not here yet. I don't see it. I don't know if this is working. And so that holding on can tend to cancel it, actually, to
We
give
we
you the
try
opposite.
we try not to engage in the undoing. Prayer is often the doing and worry is the undoing. And we can often easily do both. I wanted to give another example though, is when you decide you want to pick something up, you can say, I choose to lift this, knowing that the muscle that you have that's required is already there. It's silent like God. It's silent and present, available for the demand. So when you make a demand on that muscle, whether that is the God muscle or whether that is the muscle in your arm, you then don't say, well, I hope the muscle's going to work. I hope it's really my muscle. You simply know. In fact, you know it so well that generally you don't say, unless you've had a stroke or something, I'm going to pick that up. You just decide you're going to pick it up, and your arm is over there and your hand is lifting whatever it is. Prayer works that way. It lifts easily.
Right. Yeah. So, so I've delineated the steps of it, but I want to talk more about that releasing and letting go, um, because it also indicates accepting what is right now. And the Buddhists are all about that. The Buddhists are all about accepting that life is. This is the way it is, and you accept it, and you get peace about it. And they also say, and I used to object to this in my own way of thinking, that all life is suffering. And I don't believe that all of life is suffering. I think there's a lot of joy in life. And they do too. They do too. As a matter of fact, they're some of the happiest people I know. But
When they're not suffering.
but what they're saying is that there's peace and accepting what is, and knowing that this too shall pass. And so I've had to look at that acceptance, because when you're treating for something that you want, and I've had some marvelous demonstrations, we call it, when it comes true. We don't call it a miracle, we call it a demonstration. So but there's still that acceptance of what is in the interim, and what you treat for may never happen. That, I mean, sometimes it never happens. So that's really where acceptance comes in, and you have to accept, I don't know, there's something in my consciousness that I'm not aware of. I don't know, maybe I had a contract before I came in of what I wanted to experience. I don't know. So there's a lot of peace, and I don't know, but I accept what is, as the highest and best for me. I really do believe that everything happens to us, happens for us, even if it's painful, even if it's painful.
I was thinking because I do a lot of writing, and now that I've published a book, I can call myself an author, that every time I sit down to write something, uh, I have to accept that what I've written is real. What I have to accept is that what I see on the page in front of me does really exist. Now, having accepted that it exists does not mean that I need to accept it being that way forever. It doesn't mean it's written in stone. So accepting a condition, which is the state of my writing at the time that I put it down, I may very well invite Judith, as I often do, to come and help me with an edit. And what is an edit other than to look at what is so and look at the possibility of it being something different, of change, the possibility of creating from within. And so the reason I make that distinction is because I've met people who are trying to follow our teaching who say, no, no, I can't accept that. I can't even say that. Well, that would be like, I can't share with you what I've written because it can't exist, but I'd like to edit it. So you have to be able to say, this is the state of where I am right now. This is the state of my thinking right now. Now, can we look at this from a different perspective? And often what amazes me with writing, but it also amazes me with prayer, is Judith will sit down and she'll look at a sentence that I've been working on for the better part of an hour because it needs to be right. And she'll say, well, why don't you think about putting it this way rather than that way? And that simple shift changes everything. And all of a sudden, but then also what happens is after a few minutes of looking at it, having been revised, and then rereading it, it isn't her edit, it's my edit. It's my writing. It becomes mine. I have ownership of it, but it's not fixed in a permanent way. It's an available statement of the existence right now. Now, I say that in part because we often are asked to help people with disease, and that is to overcome disease, not to get one. And when somebody calls and says, so and so has this disease, they're often talking about a fixed idea in their mind about a fixed thing that exists and it's solid, and that's just the way that is. Now, would you help me perform some sort of magic to get rid of it? But what occurs to me is that every disease that we know of exists in a climate. It exists in its condition, and everything has to be right for that disease to thrive. Everything has to be right in the sentence for a word to fit. And when you make the sentence unusable for that word, you can take it out. Whenever the disease is in a condition that changes, then the condition then is what eliminates the disease. You can change a condition. And so I say that because we don't want to be attacking a disease. We want to be knowing that the conditions that are required for perfect health exist. And all we really need to do is to invite those conditions to be increased, to be enlarged, to be more recognized, be recognizable. And so what I'm also suggesting is that doing treatment is not declaring war. It is not against something. It's for the possibility of the very best and highest that already exists within us. And that's really, really important because, and particularly for people that have learned a lot about not being aggressive and not attacking things and not declaring war on anybody or anything, it becomes really counterintuitive, if you will, to declare war on disease. In fact, it makes no sense at all. And so what you have to do is to say, what we need to do is just change the condition so that the disease or whatever it is that's in my life that I don't want to have be there is gone. I remember having somebody one time come to me and they said, I'm treating for this, for me to get along better with my boss. My boss is miserable and horrible and constantly attacking me and just all kinds of horrible things. What can you tell me that I can do? What strategy can I use? Would you treat for me getting along with my boss? And I said, I'll treat for the best and the highest for you and for your boss. For my boss as well? Yes, for your boss as well as for you. And she came back a week later and she said, the problem's been solved. I said, what happened? She said, they transferred my boss. Okay. And it was definitely the highest and the best for her. And it was the highest and the best for her boss, unless they went to some far off land someplace to get rid of her. She didn't go to Siberia, so I think she was okay.
That's great. Well, I'd like to get back to this idea that the Buddhists thought that all life is suffering, or I'm not even sure I'm saying it right. It could be there's suffering. There's always suffering in life, and there is because nobody gets through this life without having at least a little bit of illness that's painful. And we all lose loved ones, which is very painful. And so none of us get out of this earth school without some suffering. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a lot of joy and a lot of peace along the way. Another thing that brings me peace is knowing that life is eternal. And really, even though we may lose loved ones, I don't believe they ever die. I believe they're part of a greater part of themselves that we call a soul or spirit that is much bigger than the ego entity that lived this lifetime, and that is ongoing with its adventures and lifetimes that it experiences. So while it's always a loss to those left behind, and it is painful, it is suffering, there is, the belief and the eternality of the soul ever and ever expanding, which is one of our key tenets in the science of mind. Belief in the eternality of the soul ever expanding.
I was
That
thinking,
brings a lot of peace.
our life is a book, and when you tear a page out of it, you don't eliminate the book. The book
Mm,
continues to be the book.
mm,
And that page may
good,
be
good
a loss to
analogy.
all of those who loved that page and cared about that page and got to know that page, or were that on that page with that person. The book continues. Every
Mhm,
chapter continues. And there'll be more chapters after that book for the next one.
indeed. So another thought that came to me as I was thinking about this acceptance of what is right now is this concept. Ernest Holmes calls it the reciprocity of spirit.
You like big words.
The give and take. And I see it in two ways that, we might even call it the law of mind. The law of mind receives the impress of your thoughts, and then it gives back when it manifests in form. It always takes a while sometimes it's instantaneous. Frankly, I've had 8 instantaneous healings by various means, and so thank God for instant healings. I love them, but sometimes it takes time, a long time sometimes. And so we just have to accept what is. But that's that reciprocity. Spirit, God, the law receives the impress of your thoughts and strong feelings, and then returns it to you. And I believe we also need that reciprocity in our spiritual practices. We have our prayer, which is important, which is when we're stating what we would like to experience. And then we must have those times of meditation where we are not trying to make anything happen. We are simply being in a place of receptivity. Because in that state of receptivity, you get a lot of peace, but you also get a lot of ideas of things that you need to do next that you had not thought of yourself. So you can just be in the receptive mode, which leads to great creativity.
I was talking to a man some time ago who was in jail and was going to be in jail for about 5 years. And I said, how are you coping with that? And he said, well, up until this last year, I was serving a 5 year sentence. And I said, so what has changed? He said, well, now the 5 year sentence is serving me. And with the service, and
Mm.
it's serving me, I now have the room within this sentence to allow myself to live. I wonder how many of us are serving a life sentence as opposed to allowing the life sentence to serve us. And if life is in service to us, if there's a reciprocity that you're talking about, where what we
Hmm.
do
Hmm.
creates for us, then maybe we just need to unlock the door and say, I'm going to get out of prison today. I've been in
Hmm.
prison because the prison most of us live in has nothing to do with any bars.
No,
It has to do with,
prison of our mind.
yeah, and for a lot of people that during the pandemic they have felt imprisoned because they have thought about how unacceptable it is to have to be confined to a small space and then confine themselves to that space, as opposed to, if this is a space I would have to live the rest of my life in, if I could never leave this space, how could I create it in a way that works for me? How could I have this life work for me more effectively? So when you look at your space, and we started doing that after a couple of months of the pandemic, we started looking at every room and saying, does this space serve us? And it wasn't going to serve our guests because we weren't going to have any. I, re- we
We
were,
almost moved the exercise machine out of our living room, and then we thought, who cares?
yeah,
Nobody comes in here.
nobody's gonna see it. That's right. Yeah. Dirt, another whole thing that just accumulates. So now we have lots of friends. We call them dust balls.
Not anymore.
That's true. We hired some cleaning people to come in who cleaned with great disdain at how much cleaning that was required, and they looked at us as if we had probably been homeless and didn't know how to take care of a home. And we told them that we had been homeless and that we didn't know what dirt was and how to take care of it. Yeah.
Uh,
We cleaned this floor 5 times, 5 buckets of water. I said, I know we walk a lot.
that was the grout that they were
Yeah,
upset
yeah.
about. Not the floor, the grout. Okay, so
Enough about us.
enough about us, and I think it's time for some music.
Oh my God, it is. That's hard to believe. We have
So
whipped through this one.
we did. I was even going to tell a story, but
Yeah,
then
no,
you told the dirt story. So
yeah, right. So now you know about us. We have dirt in our house and an exercise machine in the living room.
no, we used to have
Yeah,
dirt
yeah,
in there.
but
Now we have
but I
cleaning
have
people.
I have a brand new printer coming.
Oh, you're going to
Yes.
tell that story.
Yeah, I have a brand new printer.
Can
And
you
the
get
most
that
wonderful
in?
thing about my new printer is I ordered it. It was a wonderful gift actually from the universe that got started some time ago. I put it in mind and it came back as an incredible gift to me. But here's what's really important. It's my printer. I'm going to be able to print the most amazing artwork, and yet I can't see it because it's not here yet.
That's right.
And so it's in process. Now I can't go back and think, well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not my print. It is. Whatever you put in mind is yours. And we're going to go to a song,
I'm going to stop recording
a
here.
great song, yeah.